On today's Locked On Thunder, Locked On Nuggets crossover episode, our tension's going to boil up on this show, in this game. We're going to tell you how it is going to happen after this on the Locked On Thunder, Locked On Nuggets crossover.
You are Locked On NBA crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder, Locked On Nuggets crossover episode. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's Ryan Blackburn, co-host of Locked On Nuggets. And we've got quite the game this evening in the Paycom Center on national television. Ryan, how excited are you to watch the Thunder and Nuggets go at it again?
Not super. If I'm being honest, this has been a stressful Nuggets season because I think Nuggets fans really thought that this was going to be hey, you stay healthy, you stay good to go, everybody's excited. The feeling for both fan bases is like, all right, these are the two best teams in the NBA. Let's get after it. And for the Thunder, they've delivered exactly that. For the Nuggets, it has been so overwhelming in terms of the amount of injuries that they faced. And fortunately, doesn't look like Jamal Murray's injury was super serious, although that was a fear that a lot of Nuggets fans had in the building on Friday, on top of losing by the most points that they've lost to since they were the 11-win Nuggets in 1998 against the Jordan Bulls.
It is obviously a disappointing way to enter this game for Denver. The fact that Jamal Murray is questionable, though, that's good news. The Thunder get A.J. Mitchell back. That's great news for OKC. The Thunder have not had A.J. Mitchell since January 21st. And so his table-setting ability is going to be awesome for this team. The ability to be a playmaker and another creator for this Thunder team is what they really need. And his ability to get to the paint, get to the free throw line, those things really help this offense go. And he's a really improved defender from where he was a year ago. But Ryan, Jamal Murray being questionable is big time. I don't know that we have any lean one way or the other if he's going to play tonight, but just regardless of if he plays tonight, it's great to see, because you mentioned it, Friday did not look good.
No, it did not. We were on I was sitting on the opposite side of the arena, so I didn't actually know whether he hurt his knee or his ankle because he grabbed the lower leg. And so it was very scary with him being down for as long as he was, but he got up, he limped off. Apparently the message that he gave to Nuggets players and coaches in the locker rooms that he was fine, he was okay. It was just a scary moment for everybody. But yeah, that could have been Denver's season. They still might have some residual issues from that, but if he does play, then that's great. I don't think he's going to. I wouldn't expect it, but he's going to try his best because he really does try to get up for these OKC games. He understands the value of this. I think all the Nuggets do, and I think they understand that it's go time for the team, whether they like it or not.
And I think that both these teams have that same mentality. And that's why I think this is an easy question to answer. Do you think that this is a rivalry? I mean, what do you get from this Nugget side of things? Because from the Thunder side of things, I think it's a rivalry and the respect factor of they understand what this game means. And they're going to head into every game against Denver looking to get better. Iron sharpens iron. And you can look at every quote that Mark ever gives, the players give. They have the utmost respect for who Denver is and understanding that they're going to have to deal with Denver. Who cares what the records are? Who cares what the clutch stat is? Who cares what the defensive metrics say? They know that in their quest for another championship, it's once again going to be in large part about Denver and San Antonio, of course. But for right now, we're talking about Denver and Denver to deal with for OKC and the respect for Jokic and this entire core of Denver. It is a rivalry in the sense of, to be the best, you want to beat the best, and you want to continue to have success against these teams that you view are in your same tier and you view are going to be in your championship pathway. So I don't think that there's any hatred for the team to team, and I want to know what you think about being around that team. I obviously think that the fan base has a lot of hatred for one another, and it's a rivalry in the fan base. But I think that these teams take it as a rivalry just out of sheer respect.
Undoubtedly, Thunder fans hate me, so they can get it off their chest immediately. I understand. I have not been quiet in terms of my. It's not disdain for the Thunder. It's more disdain for how good they are, because this was the problem. And when the Nuggets won the championship in 23, I think if you asked them in 24, when OKC and Denver and Minnesota were all tied for the top, I think Denver still wouldn't have full respect at that point for OKC because they hadn't proven it yet up until that point. It was still an upward mobility, trying to Denver was the top dog at that point, so they didn't have respect for anybody. Now, like, hey, you lose to Minnesota in a heartbreaking series, you lose to OKC in a heartbreaking series in the next year, and there's a lot more healthy respect. But yeah, it's a rivalry. There's undoubtedly a rivalry there. These two teams. There was a quote that went around earlier today on Sunday that basically said, yeah, Jokic, he watches OKC a lot. He loves and respects their team and the way that they play and the style of which they play, which is really funny when you talk about how much criticism there has been from style of play from the fans themselves. But Jokic, of course, respects them. The team respects them. I think the Lou Dort incident, certain like the battles back and forth between Jokic and Jalen Williams and Shai ripping their hearts out on a couple of occasions these like last couple of seasons. Yeah, there's a healthy respect, a rivalry aspect, and I think these two teams still feel like they're going to have to go through each other when it's all said and done. And Denver couldn't get through it last year. They are trying to get back to it again.
Where do you think that this game goes from a tension standpoint? You mentioned the Lou Dort play. Obviously, we can point to, Coach Edelman talking about this before the Minnesota game, 36 hours after the fact, and being asked about it again once Lou Dort responded.
I'm gonna blame local media for that more than anything, just because like everybody's trying to squeeze all the juice out of the clips and the ability to get reactions and quotes and engagement and things like that. I think that Adelman moved on, but he continued to get asked about it, which annoyed him thoroughly.
Yeah, and I think that was the same way with Oklahoma City. I mean, Coach Mark Daigneault was asked about it before the Mavericks game because it happened hours after the Denver game, which if Denver did not get asked about it, then Mark doesn't get asked about it, and then that kind of ends. So it just was a cyclical cycle to keep feeding itself because it was the biggest talking point in the NBA after that game. But I think that both teams are ready to move on from this. Like, I'm not going to guarantee that the tensions don't boil over and we don't see another skirmish, but I'm just going to say I wouldn't imagine that the mindset at opening tip-off is like revenge for the Lou Dort play. I think that something could always happen.
No,
but I don't think that there's anything like that.
I think it's way more revenge, like from Denver's perspective, it's revenge for losing twice in a row and losing game 7 in that situation, and Denver kind of being overtaken in a situation where they thought they had an opportunity and advantage, and ultimately that didn't work out. So I think that's like everybody in Denver, including the Nuggets, understands the beast that they have to go through with OKC. And one of the ways I think they believe that they can attack this is they have to be as physical as possible. You got to match OKC's physicality and try to break them at their own game. And whether that's the right thing or not, I don't know. But like Denver went to overtime in Paycom Center a week ago doing exactly the same thing. So I do think that there is something to be said that when everybody is dialed in, if Denver was a little bit more efficient, they walk out of there with a win. So they're going to try to be physical, but physicality begets physicality on both sides of the floor. So it wouldn't surprise me if these things ramp up and you see another escapade.
Yeah, and that's the thing about that game on that Friday that went to overtime. If you stripped away just that incident and like all that the brouhaha that went on there, from start to finish, this was a physical game for both sides. And it was a fun playoff game. Like if you just took away that side story and just watched the basketball, it was a great game. And somebody had to win, somebody had to lose, but it was a great game, hard fought. And you mentioned getting up for these games. I think that you can really see it. And Denver fans do not like me either, but your everydayers who listen to Locked On Nuggets and remember our Locked On Nuggets Thunder crossover from that playoff series, they seem to like me at least a little bit. Oh, yeah. So you guys know that I'm all in on the Denver Nuggies. I'm a Nuggie guy. I'm a Nuggets guy. And I think that whenever I look at this Nuggets team, and you watch a lot of the Thunder games whenever the Thunder aren't playing Denver, I do see a difference. And I'll just call out my guy because I love him and I have the right to, I think, as a Jayhawk fan. Like, I look at Christian Brown. I love Christian Brown. 82 games of the year, doesn't matter who they play. But when they play the Thunder, I love him even more because of the way that he ratchets up on the defensive end of the floor. And that's why, Ryan, I don't care what you're going to throw at me. Whenever we're going to talk about contenders, I don't care if you're going to throw at me their clutch stats or their defensive metrics or whatever. When the ball is tipped in the biggest moments, I trust this Nuggets team to scale up just like I trust this Thunder team to scale up. And these are the two biggest contenders to me in the Western Conference along with San Antonio.
I think it's great. I think it's a really valuable lesson for a lot of people to learn that the regular season and the playoffs, there's like, while there is a really important factor in terms of gaining seeding, like that is certainly a factor in terms of actual talent level and in terms of actual like impact in a playoff environment. It's never been more disparate in terms of what you're showing in the regular season versus what you're showing in the playoffs. There was a quote a couple weeks ago, I think, about David Adelman, especially in the clutch. Like he says, I know we can run empty side pick and roll, guys. I know we can run empty side pick and roll, but they're not going to, because they're saving stuff, because they're not going to show things extensively in a clutch time environment in games that matter, but like you would rather save that for a key moment in a game 5, 6, or 7 in a playoff series. And that's just it's an understandable factor. So I think that Denver has the ability to ramp up. Obviously, they've been hamstrung so far in terms of not being able to, like, they have played their intended starting lineup for 5 minutes since November 12th. Just let me say that again. 5 total minutes. Like this has been a situation, and OKC fans I think can sympathize with that because they've been in these situations before too, with Jalen Williams, especially this year and last year, but also Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren and like a whole bunch of guys that have missed a whole bunch of time. Like when you have that, you start to get into later environments when those guys come back, and you're like, it looks a little bit clunky. It looks a little bit weird. Things aren't flowing as well as you need to. Denver needs a little bit of a ramp up time for that. They're not going to be great in the regular season. Doesn't mean they can't be great in the playoffs.
Yeah, they certainly can be. And you mentioned it there. I think that's a thing that both these teams are able to do. They have some new parts, of course, mentioning Cam Johnson, and for the Thunder, they've seen some new additions of Jared McCain, and also just guys getting better to where like Isaiah Joe looks like a new player, Casey Wallace looks like a new player. Like, yes, you know what your fastball is, or like the empty side pick and roll. It's like, you know what your team's really good at, but not only do you want to save some of it, you also want to see what else you have. And if you can put on film something that looks really great that isn't your fastball, then it also gives you an advantage of, well, then what do you prepare for? Like if all of a sudden you come out here and it's like you're going to see Shai and 4 shooters next to him, and now you're really gearing up to defend that. And in the playoffs, they zig back to just playing how they used to, of just having double bigs in there and having J-Dub. Now you've prepared for something that they're not even going to go to a whole lot in the postseason when it actually matters, just as an example. But I think that there is some of that too, of the balancing act of trying new things, exploring new things, kind of getting data that you can use later on. Because you also, if you get into a spot where you think that empty side pick and roll is your fastball, you think that that's going to be your bread and butter, and somehow that gets taken away, you want to have something else that you've done at least before that you can go try out in a big spot like that. So it's all tied together. I think that these two teams, you can't overthink it. They are at the top of the West with San Antonio, as these are the teams that not only are the top of the West, but I think the top of the entire NBA. When you look at these teams in the postseason environment coming up, we'll stick on the contenders topic. We'll also talk about that very same topic. What do you want to see in this game? Is there anything that you're dying to still learn about these matchups, or have we kind of figured it all out? It's just going to be 2 great teams battling it out the rest of the way. We'll talk about that coming up on today's Lockdown Thunder, Lockdown Nuggets crossover. But first, I want to say right now, good friends over at BetterHelp. Go check out BetterHelp today, folks, because they are incredible. And when you do, you will see that this episode is not only sponsored to you by BetterHelp, but March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and all the unseen roles that they step into every single day. It's important to see that while we are celebrating this month and their strength, it's also important to make space for their emotional well-being and honesty. It goes for all of us to make that kind of motivation to make sure that they are seen. You can think about your sisters, your mothers, your spouses. Every woman in your life has done more than you can imagine for you, and you want to ensure that you are giving back to them and helping them. And that's why, even though they're so strong, sometimes everybody carries a little bit too much, and they need to experience a form of therapy to help them throughout their lives. So therapy can help you with all of the pressures, the expectations, everything that happens in your everyday life, creating balance and healthy boundaries and supporting your overall well-being. And with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform. And it works by filling out a short questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist, and boom, away you go. If it's not the perfect fit, guess what? You can switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find the support and feel lighter in therapy by signing up today and getting 10% off at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Go check them out today. Also, what's here right now about our good friends over at FanDuel, folks. Guess what? It's college basketball season, and you know how electric college basketball is. It's nonstop. big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's some action out there on the board all the time, and that's where FanDuel is giving you the way to turn that energy for these games into bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, from rivalry games to ranked matchups, whatever you see fit. You can mix and match spreads, totals, player props, and see just how your slate is stacking up, and then apply your profit boost and instantly bump your potential payout. So you can go safe, you can be bold, you can ride with the team that you've been riding with all season for your parlays if you would like to, and you can do it all in your style. And now with the upside of the potential bigger payout with FanDuel.com right now to get started. Go to FanDuel.com right now to get started. Play your game over there with your profit boost, like taking my guys, Robert Morris, 4.5-point favorites over Detroit Mercy. Go check them out today at FanDuel. Also, want to say right now, my good friends over at Indeed, folks. Indeed is awesome, especially if you're dealing with this scenario, with the chaos stacking up at work and the deadlines just coming at a warped speed. The inbox is overflowing. If there's still that one position that you have sitting open and the pressure's on you, you need to get the right hire, and this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people that actually fit what you're looking for, from skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post, but you actually can able to guarantee it with the stat that we're going to tell you right here, which is in the last minute we've been talking to you. Companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who fit all the boxes that you need them to fit at Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So you can spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes, like low stress, less time, less stress, more results, and you can get the right person to cut through the chaos. And this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Send it over to Indeed Sponsored Jobs right now. Let them know we sent you, because a listener of this show, like yourself, will get $75 in sponsored job credits to get your job to the premium status it deserves. Go to Indeed.com/podcast. And again, by going to Indeed.com/podcast right now, you'll be supporting our show by saying that we sent you to Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. We're back on the Locked On Thunder, Locked On Nuggets crossover episode. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's Ryan Blackburn, host of Locked On Nuggets. Ryan, we've talked about them being contenders. They've seen plenty of battles with one another, divisional foes, playing 4 times a year, plus that 7-game series last postseason, which could have gone either way. We can go through the myriad of injuries that Denver suffered in that series that helped tilt it in OKC's favor. Is there anything about this matchup that you're very curious about? Or do you think that we've kind of seen these two teams duke it out so much that we know what to expect? These are going to be tightly contested games, very physical games, and some team's going to get the bounce at the end and some team won't.
Yeah, I don't have that many questions in terms of how these teams are going to match up with each other. I think Christian Brown's going to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he's going to do a pretty solid job. I think that one of the things that we noticed from the first matchup between these two teams was, okay, Peyton Watson was on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for that one, and I don't think he made much of an impact in that particular matchup for obvious reasons. Shai went off and went crazy, and Denver was just behind the 8 ball that entire game. Denver was upended by the physicality in that one, and Jokic, obviously, okay, first couple of games back, he was clearly still getting adjusted. OKC's a pretty tough team to adjust to, so there was no question about that. Second game, you had the physicality that Denver was able to deliver, and they got off to a big run, but shockingly, OKC comes back and does the thing that they always do, which is they are staying resilient and they know what they're going to be running up against. And in those bench units that Shai is staggering with, that's a really, really big deal for any team to match up with. So I guess my question with AJ Mitchell back, what is Shai's rotation going to look like now? Is it going to go to that same staggered look, or is it going to be first 12 minutes of the first quarter and third quarter and then last 6 minutes of the second and fourth?
Yeah, I think that with AJ back, it does let them have the option to go back to 12 minutes in the first, 12 minutes in the third, and then half of the second and fourth quarters. The fact that Shai is still coming back from that abdominal strain and has been a little gassed at times, honestly, since he's returned, that might throw a wrench into things. But I think ideally they want to get him back to a more normal rotation. And so I'd be interested if the Thunder did change his rotation at all. I think that he'll be back to normal tonight of going 12 in the first and 12 in the third quarter, and then checking back in around the 7-minute mark of the second and fourth quarters, and letting AJ Mitchell really shine as that lead creator, lead score, if you will, during the non-Shai minutes. But the injury could throw a wrench into that. So that is a good point about this in particular game. Another one for me would be on Denver's side of things, not having to worry about J-Dub, does that change with having Gordon back what you would like to see them do defensively? Yes, I think that we mentioned at the top of the segment, I think that Christian's been really good defensively against Oklahoma City, and he really does kind of match the moment that this is of trying to defend Shai, trying to defend the Thunder. But could you see them with only one guy that you're really concerned about on the court with the ball in his hands? Could you see them having a zone? Could you see them using Gordon more on SGA to get that kind of physicality, that size onto Shai, and not really being too worried about the fact of, you can not have to worry about J-Dub, and you can put Gordon onto Shai. And even though Shai is shifty, and even though Shai, you would imagine, of course, more athletic than Aaron Gordon, Shai also uses his strength a lot to get to his spots and to get to his buckets. So having a guy who's a bit stronger like Aaron Gordon on him wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, considering that the Nuggets don't have Peyton Watson to deploy on him, who I think is the best option for Denver on Shai is Watson, but he's obviously out in this game. Do you think that could change the math at all of how Denver tries to defend Shai, not having to worry about J-Dub?
It's a good question. I kind of think that Cam Johnson is going to be the guy that goes up against J-Dub, and that they leave Aaron Gordon to go against Chet. Like, that would be that's what I would do if I were them. And one of the things that, as the Nuggets, that they have to figure out, like the matchup with Chet, I believe, didn't he have 20 rebounds in that game against Denver? Like, just a tremendous rebounding presence for a guy who is not known for that. That was a massive performance from them. I think adding physicality to that, rather than leaving Cam Johnson against him, is the right call for Denver in this particular matchup. And then they keep going with Christian Braun against Shai. Like, I think one of the things that they're learning about this matchup is that Shai is going to get his. Sometimes he will be above average efficiency, and sometimes he'll be elite bonkers efficiency, but you're not going to hold him underwater no matter who you put him against. So have a guy who can just make him work, and Christian is the guy that is for. And then Aaron, I think, is the matchup that you want against Chet, to try to disrupt him at least a little bit and put a little bit more pressure on him, maybe put him into some foul trouble at some points. Keep in mind, though, Aaron's still going to be on a minutes restriction. I doubt that he plays over 25 minutes in this game. And as a result, OKC is still going to have the advantage despite all of the injuries that Denver's recovering in that, but they've still got some questions to answer.
And I think that's why the Gordon minutes are so huge. Of like, I think the Nuggets have to overwhelmingly win those minutes, and they have the clear pathway to do so, because I do like him as a Chet defender on a multitude of fronts. Like, Chet's not been very efficient at creating his own shot, so he's really got to be set up to do so in a play finishing role. And if Gordon can keep pushing him out to the three while being close to him, of course, to contest that three, that really does take a lot away of what Chet likes to do. If he can get set up in an area where Shai can find him in the mid-range or at the rim, that's where Chet's at his best offensively. If that gets taken away, that's a big time. And no Isaiah Hartenstein in this game, the Nuggets have to dominate the glass, and they should dominate the glass in this one. And that really helps on both ends. If you can dominate the offensive glass of your Denver, not only do you get more chances to score second chance points, but you limit the transition opportunities for OKC off of that, on top of limiting the turnovers, of course, which is the same thing for every game that's ever been played, from down at a local high school to the NBA. You want to limit turnovers, but controlling the glass will be a big one, because yes, Chet did have 20 against Denver. That was awesome. But how many of those were set up by iHeart, just banging down low, boxing out, and just letting Chet get boards, like letting it happen, versus Chet going and taking it? I don't want to take anything away from Chet's overall game, because like, obviously you don't just stumble into 20 rebounds, but he was certainly helped by having Isaiah Hartenstein. And now there's going to be these situations where they're not going to have that typical bruising center to help them not only defend Jokic, which is going to be a lot on J Whale, and you're without J-Dub, who likes to scale up and try to defend him. You're questionable to have Caruso and questionable to have Chet, but typically whenever the Thunder elevate guys to questionable, they end up playing. So hopefully for the Thunder's sake, they'll have those two guys there. But it is going to be very interesting, all the advantages that Denver can create, especially in this game, where I think that it does line up for a big bounce back win for Denver on a multitude of fronts, bouncing back from the Knicks loss, but also bouncing back from being 0-2 against OKC. If they can do the glass, handle the glass very well, and keep Chet in check as a scorer, they can really have a pipeline to victory here in a pretty substantial way.
A lot of that's going to come down to if Jamal Murray plays. He's one of the guys that, of course, takes advantage of the size advantage that the Nuggets would have, where, okay, Jalen Williams is banging with Jokic, Chet Holmgren has to deal with Aaron Gordon. If Jamal Murray is then able to be freed up in some of those situations, then he gets to take advantage of that size disparity as well. I am interested about the Jokic versus J. Will matchup. To me, I was laughing about it just in the background of while you're talking. I don't know if there's a guy that has annoyed Jokic more in the past couple of years than J. Will. I think he is very fundamentally sound. He's really smart. The getting into position to take charges definitely bothers Jokic. Like that's something that he may have a moral or ethical dilemma against or something of that nature. But the way that J. Will consistently brings physicality and tries to annoy him and just get under his skin, that's something that I'm going to be watching. I'm going to wonder how Lou Dort matches up with Jamal Murray if he does play. If he doesn't, who does Denver start at point guard in this game? Second half of the game, on Friday, they started Julian Strawther and then had Julian Strawther and Christian Brown in the backcourt. That did not go well for Denver for obvious reasons. They don't really have a great second unit point guard to be able to go to. Maybe it's Bruce Brown. Maybe it's Tyus Jones. That'll be an interesting one to monitor. But I am more pessimistic about this one, especially if Jamal Murray doesn't play than you are, just because I really wonder about OKC's ability to turn Denver over, especially if they don't have their leading ball handlers. Not only is Jamal Murray questionable, but Peyton Watson is out. He's another guy that could bring the ball up the floor. They do not want to put that on Aaron Gordon. You're probably going to have Jokic bring up the ball a lot of the time.
And that could be interesting for a few reasons. This last thing that I had, and I want to let you just get out whatever you need to get out, and we can wrap up this bonus episode for our audience here. Speaking of Jokic, I love you guys' show. And I know that whenever he first returned, a talking point around Jokic was just like, hey, he's not as comfortable right this second, which is understandable when you first returned from injury, of like getting back to the basket, of getting downhill as frequently. And now in this game against Oklahoma City, with no Isaiah Hartenstein, and the Thunder in general haven't done a ton of Chet and J. Will double big lineups. They've done more of it this year than ever before, but they still haven't done a ton of it. And they just simply don't have the bodies required to handle double big lineups for strong stretches of a game, considering their lack of depth without Isaiah Hartenstein. With that being said, the Thunder are going to have to play some small ball lineups. Have you seen, as we're further and further removed from the Jokic injury, have you seen a return to form of him being able to want to put the ball on the deck and get to the rim? Because if so, I mean, the small ball Thunder might have some issues in those stretches of the game.
He's definitely done better. Or like in this last game against New York, one of the things that was hidden in that game is that Jokic started the game 12 of 12 from 2. Like he was unbelievable inside the arc. Now he started 0 of 6 from 3 outside the arc. And so that is probably something that they will try to go away from. But it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to establish himself on the block, perhaps at the elbow. There will be some cutting angles for guys. There will be some opportunities for him to turn and face and hit a jumper over somebody. But it will be an interesting situation that if he gets doubled, if he gets harassed, like one of the great things about OKC and their defense is that they can help and recover. It is not a choice between the two. They are one of the only teams in the NBA that can do that as well as they do. So it's going to be interesting. He has to avoid the turnovers. He has to avoid the miscues, drawing offensive fouls in tough situations like that. That would be an absolute killer for Denver in this game. But I do think that he has improved in that, especially since like even a week ago when OKC and Denver played. I do think that he's made a lot of progress in that. He's had to deal with a lot of these small lineups, man. That's the thing against whether it's OKC or Minnesota, Utah. Of course, the Keontae George play was very big. It went very viral for a lot of reasons. But the Lakers did this as well, and he managed that extremely well. I thought he handled that, despite he had 9 turnovers in that game, but that doesn't tell the story. He actually did handle it extremely well in terms of making the right decisions. He just made a lot of decisions and racked up some bad turnovers. So there's progress to be made. I do think he's getting better at it, which is a weird thing to say about what we think is the best player in the world over here. But like, I do think that if Denver is going to have a chance against OKC, he has to play at that level. There's no question about it. One of the things that Denver's running into is that he has been more mortal over the course of this last 6 weeks or so than he's ever been in the last 5 years. It has been really weird for Nuggets fans to deal with, and I think caused a lot of panic. him playing at that level again would, I think, still a lot of rapidly beating hearts, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, Shai and Jokic are obviously the players to watch. I think that beyond that, you're looking at the rebounding disparity. You're looking at the turnover disparity, given the lack of Nuggets ball handlers, given the lack of size for OKC for those two things. Shot variance, just frankly, I mean, both these teams could stay. I mean, how lucky are the Thunder that like Cam Johnson bricked that shot, that Jokic was not efficient from three.
Alex buckets at the end of that game.
I mean, like both teams really had some sigh relief possessions to get it to overtime where teams left the door open on each side for the Thunder and Nuggets. Who's going to be an overwhelming shot variance advantage game? Is there going to be one for either side? Like those are the three areas that if you can win two of the three, you're going to win this game. And your guess is as good as mine of who's going to come out victorious. But those are the three that I'm really looking for. Would you add anything to that list that you're really thinking can change the game?
Foul trouble will, of course, be a thing. I want to see what Denver does if Christian Brown, for example, gets into foul trouble. How are they going to handle the matchup against Shai? What are they going to look like? Are they going to go super big in some of those lineups? They may have to, especially if Murray is out. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I want to see a bounce back Cam Johnson game if I'm a Nuggets fan. Like he's gone through the ringer. He has had a tough run of it. So they need him to be better. And this is a great opportunity for him to do it, even though it's one of the toughest matchups he will face this year.
Yeah, and foul trouble is going to be a huge one because I think that these officials can't help but understand what happened last game and how fresh it is too. It's not like this happened 2 months ago, right? It happened last Friday between these two teams. So because of that, I would imagine that's going to be a very tight whistle. I would imagine that they're going to want to nip anything in the bud and give Jokic a fair whistle whenever Smalls are defending him to the best that you can, which has been a problem for the entirety of the NBA. It's not just a Jokic thing. Like the entirety of the NBA, you've seen Smalls get an advantage when defending bigs. But and again, like this, in an environment like this, I think that they'll have a tighter whistle. So foul trouble could be paramount for both teams. It'll be very fun to see how this all plays out. And that's why we have this bonus show crossing it over. Ryan, this was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Rylan, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Hopefully we get to see each other in the playoffs, or else San Antonio upsets you guys at some point. That'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, the 1 seed is not the prize it once was, right? If you have to go through both Denver and San Antonio because Denver's in the 4-5, it's not exactly the prize.
Hey, they're dropping to the 3-6, and they're dropping to the 6. I'll tell you that.
From OKC's perspective, that'd be fun. That'd be fun if the Thunder hold on to the 1 seed and that happens. But Ryan, this is a lot of fun. We'll both be recapping this game for Locked On Thunder, Locked On Nuggets. Go check it out post game. And until next time, folks, be good and be good to one another.